People are so important to the Heath because they were the people that created it in the first place. The first things that colonised after the last ice age around 10,000 years ago would have been grasses. Well, what we're looking at here really, you know, things like rushes and a bit of heather, and then suddenly in comes the birch a bit and a bit of gorse, and then before you know it the birch gets a bit bigger, and then the oak comes in like that, and then
the stomach of the animal you can clean out and you can use to transport water. The tusks are going to be used for jewellery, ornamentation, but also going to be used, you can take the bones as well, to make into bone needles. And that's why that relationship between...
Quite a few thousand years later really, after mankind had been wandering around the landscape doing hunting gathering, they realised, oh, we want to domesticate a few more things, animals, cattle and things like that, and sheep, and they would start to clear the areas. And then of course they started to use all the materials, and so the landscape opened up quite dramatically and quite quickly.
Nice meeting you. Take care now.
Take care, have a good day.
Well, we're standing here very close to the line of the main Roman road which ran from Chichester up through here towards Silchester.
Tragic.
No, 'cause it's really vodka. We find they fight better that way. Look, Duke William wants to be a king, and he wants the English crown. And as such, a great Norman army lands in England, and their fighting tactics are very, very different to those of the Saxon shield wall. But will the Saxon shield wall stand against the mighty Norman cavalry, the greatest cavalry in Europe? But again, the Saxons hold. The fight goes on for hours. The Saxons hold the high ground, and they keep beating the cavalry off. The 100 Years' War has a major difference. There's a great development in plate armour. You can see, instead of the mail covering of the body, we now get sections of plate metal. Now this stuff is really effective.
I must admit, I was probably not expecting all the tents and the reenactments, and I thought it'd probably be you know, some snakes and jars and that sort of thing. Yeah.
What's been your favourite thing?
The reenactment.
The sword fighting, yeah.
Playing in there.
Yeah, attacking each other and attacking
Very
each other.
real.
And the worst thing is getting a notice.
Method.
And we're
The
gonna
only
do
thing is,
that!
it's not sharp on the edge.
Yeah. And are you going to do it's made of green hop, fresh green hops. They're very, very seasonal.
Want to have a helmet and
Wow.
are you videoing for a
Mum,
program or something?
not all about guns.
Is there any shade?
No, the battlefield is completely out in the open. They ended up, there was about 30 people had to come out of the battle and go and sit in the shade under the trees because just completely overheated.
How many people were there then?
It's all around about between 1.8 and 2 millimetres thick, depending on whereabouts it is. There isn't an awful lot of gaps for the steam to get out, as you can probably tell, which is why I'm going a very funny colour in the face. It's excruciatingly warm, it's very, very heavy, and there's a layer of padding underneath it.
England's got so much heritage and so much history. To actually be part and try and encourage people to be involved in it is really an exciting thing. So, I only do this as a hobby.
If you think you're in a time when the loudest thing you will ever hear is thunder, having a gun go off in front of you is absolutely terrifying.
Stand on the lever! Your money or your life! Come on, rifle through your pockets now, please. Come on. Jump up and down, we want to hear that cash.
Got anything? Jump up and down. You got any money?
Just after the Second World War, really, after the big push, D-Day landings and all that sort of things like that, all the valuable land we were growing crops on, so the only places where the army could really practice were on our heaths, okay? And so the tanks were out here and they were causing all this bare earth and everything like that. And this was the last thing that was really keeping all our insects and everything happy. And then after that, sadly, we lost our heaths a lot through neglect, mainly, but we also lost our heaths through well, agriculture, planting of woodlands, sand pits, and even houses have been developed, and so they've been built on nice old heath sites.
Well, heathlands are a great habitat. There's some incredible wildlife here, some very strange wildlife. You come here in the summer, you find tiger beetles crawling around the tracks. Today we've been seeing lots of fox moth caterpillars, these big hairy caterpillars. And lots of the children have been bringing me these big hairy caterpillars today. Lots of those crawling around at the moment. Lots of dragonflies flying around, and we've been looking up in the air for red kites, which do fly over the heath quite a lot. There's a few buzzards being flying over today. But really, if you come here in the early part of summer and midsummer, that's when the heath comes alive. There's lots of lovely butterflies here. The silver-studded blue is a real speciality. There's nightjars here in the evenings, and other migrant birds like tree pipits coming in. There's also woodlark, Dartford warblers, lots of rare species found here. One of my favourite birds, the hobby, is here as well, a big falcon which you see hunting over the heaths.
Well, it's quite interesting to actually see it, because I mean originally saw very few people, really, just a few people walking their dogs, you know. I cut on here for about 12 years, so I've had a few years experience.
What were you cutting?
Heather. Cutting heather for making brooms.
Do you really want to know what's in the box? Well, in the box is my butterfly collection. I'm appearing today as a Victorian butterfly collector because lovely heathlands like this were a great destination in the years gone by for the Victorian collectors, and they would come all the way down from London to Sussex to look for things like this. And they would unfortunately find these lovely butterflies and stick pins in them for their collection. Actually now, the one they'd probably come down here for, to the heaths of Sussex, is this little chap here, the silver-studded blue, a butterfly that depends on heather for its food plants, and it's quite a rarity in the county now, but you find quite a few of them here. Luckily, they're still here on the heaths of West Sussex.
I've managed to get people to realise that it's not just heather and a bit of gorse. There's this history that builds up with it, and it's a fascinating piece of history. And lots of people were really quite excited about that. They were like, "Wow, I didn't know there was so much to know about heathland." And so it's that nice wow factor, which I've always felt is wow, you know, like that. So I wanted to enthuse people about it. So that's good.